question. Can you eat a fertilized chicken egg? So chicken eggs, whether fertilized or unfertilized, are essentially the exact same. Nothing is growing or developing in the egg until it is warmed for a period of time at the proper temperature and humidity. So if I was to crack this most likely fertilized egg, we have a pretty healthy rooster population on our farm, and so most of our chicken eggs are probably fertilized. So let's have a little look inside. Here is a beautiful, fresh, farm fresh, free range, organic chicken egg. This egg was in fact fertilized. This is how I know. So we have our beautiful egg whites around here. We have this gorgeous yellow or orangey yolk. And if you look into that yolk, you see that little white circle right about there. Do you see it? That is called a germal cell. So that shows that this egg has in fact been fertilized, but there is no growing embryo at this point. No baby is starting to grow. It's just the potential for growth. So there is nothing wrong with eating this egg. It will be a delicious breakfast egg, as we call them in kindergarten. And there is no baby, just a germal cell that shows, in fact, this egg has indeed been fertilized. A fantastic resource that we use in our classroom when we're hatching eggs is this chick life cycle exploration set. This is a brilliant thing to have in a classroom when you are hatching eggs. There are questions every day about what's happening in the egg today. What does the embryo or the growing chick look like today? So this is an incredible resource that shows from day 1 all the way to day 21 when our sweet babe is going to be born. Okay, let's explore this resource a little bit closer. So if we look here at day 1, we have what looks like a normal egg. We can see the egg white and the egg yolk. And as I explained in the last video, we can see this germal disc. I think in the last video I called it a germal cell. It's actually referred to as a germal disc. And so what that shows us is that this egg has indeed been fertilized. But at this point, there is no growing embryo yet. So this egg needs to be warmed either by a mother hen or in an incubator for a period of just like 2 days really before that embryo starts to grow. This is important if you have hens and their eggs may be fertilized. If you're eating these eggs, you want to collect eggs every day to ensure that they have not been warmed. So we look at kind of by day 2, we start to see blood vessels are starting to form, and not really an embryo yet, but a series of cells are starting to form, and those blood vessels. So the blood vessels need to kind of reach out to the membrane that's is just inside of the egg. So basically there is an internal membrane which the egg white and the yolk and the chick are growing inside of the actual shell. So it's shell membrane and then egg white and yolk and growing baby inside of that. So those blood vessels, they stretch out to push up against the membrane, and then the oxygen basically is able to enter through tiny, tiny, tiny holes in the egg shell and then is diffused through the membrane into those blood vessels, because the blood vessels are pushed right up against that membrane. And so oxygen is able to diffuse into those blood vessels and get to that growing babe. So the yolk and the egg white contains all the nutrients to grow a baby, but we need that oxygen for that growth to take place. So as the chick grows and develops, we can start to see near the end of the first week an embryo that is starting to have, form a head and a bit of a body and eyes. And then at the end of the first week, day 7 for a chicken, this is more like around what day 10 would look like for a goose or a duck. We actually start to see the beginning of a beak and some wing formation. So doesn't exactly look like a chicken yet, but definitely some clear growth in that little embryo. So we carry on and we start to see that chicken forming. We see some little webbed feet, more of definition in beak. And then near the end of that second week, day 14, we do start to see some scales and fuzz or feather formation all the way to day 21 when that babe hatches. So kind of in the last few days of growth, what happens is pretty important. So the yolk is still intact for the most part up until right near the end. So what this babe is going to do at the end, right before it hatches, is it's going to ingest that yolk. And so it's going to basically be its food and its energy during the hatching stage. And then 24 hours after hatching, it doesn't really need to eat. It is full and full of energy and able to hatch without eating too closely to hatch time. It's usually about a day old when it's ready to start having some feed. So it's gonna suck up that yolk there at the end before it hatches.